morning. Praise God. Isn't it wonderful to be in a place, a forum where you can be free and yourself? I want to thank Chris Amulo and his team for just making this possible. My role is simple, but I'm very, very delighted to stand before you to introduce our next speaker, John Nganga. So, John and his wife, Rebecca Nganga, I have known them not 20 years, not 30 years, but 42 good years. We first met on campus, 1974. And although John was studying BCom and I was studying education, we quickly met because we stood out as those who are saved, satisfied, and going to heaven. And so before long, we were appointed or chosen to lead the Christian Union. And so a group of us formed this committee. I served the worship committee, and I think, John, you are in the main CU committee? Yes. And among the issues we talked about is dating and the importance of making sure that your spouse is saved and not backsliding. And one of the choruses is, I'm gonna stay right under the blood. I'm gonna stay right under the blood. I'm gonna stay right under the blood. Devil can't do me no harm, no harm. No harm, no harm, no harm. No harm. No harm, no harm, no harm. No harm. No harm, no harm, no harm. Where the devil can't do me no harm. So indeed, 41 years later, John and Rebecca have stayed under the blood. And by the grace of God, they have continued to be effective, efficient, relevant, both in the marketplace that we've been talking about, but even in the mainstream churches and also among professionals. So as I introduce John to talk about legacy, I can assure you that he has lived his life. When I think about 41 years of service, John, I can't help but say you have been focused, you've been passionate, you've been deliberate, you've been intentional in getting the gospel out there. Very recently, John was preaching at our church, NBC, and he was talking about evangelism, because that is our theme. And John just has a way of sharing the need and the importance of advancing and sharing the gospel in a very, very simple way. And so John tells us this story of how he travels, and one of the things that he ensures he does is that whoever he meets, he challenges them about their salvation. And so this particular time he was on a plane and he was very tired. He said, at this time, I just want to sit and I'm not gonna talk too much. So John gets onto the plane and he finds his seat, and next to him is an Asian person. So John says, yeah, there's nothing to talk about, this one, I don't have to talk about the gospel. So as he sits there, John, I think, had his book, and this book, the title was something about building blocks. So he opens his book, and this guy next to him looks and asks him, so what do you do? I'm in construction. So John quickly says, I'm in construction too, building people. And the discussion ensued. He shared the gospel. And so the point is that John is a very focused man. I think about Colossians 1:28, Paul talking about, for the gospel. Let me read it, because this is for me what really just stands out when I think about John, that he is the one we proclaim, admonishing and teaching everyone with all wisdom, so that we may present everyone full, mature in Christ. To this end, I strenuously contend with all the energy Christ so powerfully works in me. That's John. But in case you think that is all that John is about, let me just read you his credentials. His name is John N.N. Nganga. He runs a consultancy firm. That consultancy firm is called Taruma Consultancy Limited. We know that he recently retired from the country leadership of a multinational oil company as its operational manager, but has had experience in business analysis, retail marketing, aviation marketing, distribution and depot management, health and safety, environment management, logistics, and was in charge of developing the Shell transport standards in 10 countries of East Africa. In his private capacity, he has been a director in a national parastatal company, Shell Pension Fund, and was founding chairman of, among others, Mount Kenya Girls Secondary School, and is a current chairman of, among others, International Bible Society of East Africa. When all is said and done, he's a family man, married to one Rebecca Chadi, and we are very, very happy to have them. Let's give him a round of applause. So as he comes, I'd like to pray for him. Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, we want to come in your presence this mid-morning. As we share about our lives, it is not about boasting. It is about recognizing your faithfulness and seeing how when we choose to follow you, how you multiply our lives and you make them effective and you make them live out the truth and the promises of advancing your kingdom. We want to thank you for the servant of God, John, and how you have used him. And the fact that it is by your grace that you have helped him to see the value and the single one important purpose of declaring the goodness of the Lord. And now, as we pray for him to share on this important message of living a legacy, that you would give him the power, the wisdom, and the knowledge to share it in a way that all of us here would be ready to go out and live fully intentional lives for your glory and honor. In Jesus' name I pray.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Now, Florence didn't mention that in 1974, she was in worship committee, I was in the executive. In 1975, she and I ended up in the executive, and so she knows whether I'm a good chairman or not. But when you read a story, you may think it's big, but the truth is, a lot of that is selected. Only the good ones. The other. So if you want to know the real Nganga, you only need to talk to Rebecca, because Rebecca knows both. And let me ask her to just say a few words. Is that okay? Yes. Yeah, let's ask her to say a few words before I go into the subject.
Yes, good morning. Rebecca Chandi, for sting and sake, I mean, sitting here, I mean, there's something nice. Okay, there's something nice about Brackenhurst. I came here when I was in Makerere, sent by the University Christian Union, with the late Bishop Luum, who was killed thereafter. So, I mean, that was my first time to come to Brackenhurst. But there's an ongoing story currently of twins who seem like they were separated in the hospital. And it's very emotional. But one point is that when they met and embraced, it is like, yeah, something of me was lost. That's what I'm feeling. There's something of me that I feel that belongs to this group. So that I am feeling that that's something that cannot be expressed. And why is that so? I don't know who I would be. Talk of legacy. If it were not for the Navigator group and by the grace of God ending up in Nairobi Girls, I don't know who I would be if it were not for the family of Tingad and Marie. That's why I told my husband, let me just say something since I will not be here tomorrow, to just appreciate the grace of God and the people that he has used. I'm so grateful to God. I actually, when you look back in history, I think as you grow older, we all are. By the way, that's another exciting thing here. Many places we are the oldest. So now when you come here, it is refreshing. You realize we are together. These are people who struggle with technology just like I do. And we are surviving somehow. We are there, but it can give us trouble. So, I mean, I just think of that, and I'm very, very grateful. It's my husband speaking about legacy, and we have a legacy. We are because of people that God brought into our lives. So I go to Nairobi Girls, and the Tingad, they are living in Jamhuri, and they come, our school is one of the selected ones. Actually, I'm so grateful. When Jesus says, I chose you, it's not you chose me. There's so much aspect of that. As you grow older, you start looking back. Where did I come from? And you see this history. You see people that Bible analysis, what would I be? How would I understand the Bible with that angle? We know that Bible study, appreciation of the Word of God and it speaking to you. I got it through there. Now, let me talk about Uf and Anne-Marie Tingad, because that's what I wanted to say. I remember Anne-Marie, and my heart gets excited. There's a time I thought I had they were here, and I actually cried. Because nobody told me. They came to share their life with us. The way I still struggle. They would open their home totally for us. So we would actually even be in their bedroom. It was our home. It was our house. So the first white baby for me to see was their son. Somehow our children are born with hair. Theirs didn't have. It was quite something, and it was very, very small. Now, in those teenage years, it was quite an experience when now I look at it. And now when I started getting my own children, it was so meaningful, because I think it was the first baby I just had opportunity to see, and even the mother would breastfeed when we are looking, and the way she was struggling because of the dress, because now it has to be opened from the front. I saw it, and as I'm going through the experience, I felt it. There was there is a fluid I use for washing dishes in the kitchen. It is in her house where we got to know. Anybody I see, the way they use it, to me is not right. Because I was taught how to use it by Anne-Marie. So I know I use it right. The things that you don't notice that are there. I cannot, it is my husband's time to talk, but I'm so grateful to God that, yes, she ran her race, and the Lord rested her. Let me talk about Tingad. He may not realize. It must have been 73 or 4 thereabout. When we had our first, I think it was called Highlight Camp. The first group, the pictures are still there. I see them in the Navigator groups. And I remember, of course, there were the organizers and the speakers. But among the many messages, there is something he said and said it from the soul. It was not part of the talk. He said, I wish many of you would desire to be teachers. I looked at him and I thought, does he understand? I mean, teachers, they are not well paid. They don't have good jobs. I mean, they don't have titles. And sure enough, me, I went to do BCom. But that word haunted me. I wish many of you would desire to be teachers. I'm a teacher. I am teaching at Esther, and for many years, over 20 years. And it is like, thank you, Lord, for a man of God who spoke it from the heart. Now, I speak the same. I tell my students and camps, I look at people and say, I wish you could become a teacher. Because this is a soul-to-soul ministry that people don't realize. It's not just teaching to fit in. It's not domination and imposition that we are trained on. There is teaching that is different, where you touch people for the kingdom. So I am so grateful to God, and for the many people now who thank me for having recommended or commented about teaching, and that yes, there may be no money, yes, there may be more fame, but there is something about eternity. In any case, Jesus Christ was a teacher. So I'm so grateful to God that I get this opportunity to just say that. I am very, very grateful to God for using the Navigators. Whether you include me in your list or not, I cannot be unborn because I was born. The conversational prayers, the things that we learned, Esther Waroiro's teas, when I came from Makerere, that's why we were having Bible study in a house somewhere near Renana there. For many years, you can't remove what is in me. I am so grateful and praying that, pass it to faithful people. I don't know whether I do, but I try. One thing I am looking forward to, yes, he's coming, is that these days I find myself reading Revelation more to see how it shall be. That crest of sea. To see, because it excites me, for we are going somewhere, because it's a kingdom. I am reading the book of Kings because that book to me is life. The Bible is life, as you taught us. Reading the book of Kings, and every king is measured against David or Jeroboam. David's family was not very successful, we know. But every successful king did good like his father David. So we may never know the legacy we leave, but what was good about David, consulting the Lord, trusting God, and all that, may I be one day counted as one who's faithful, just like you and me. God bless you.
Amen. I don't think you remember me, but you are invited by Stevenson. Remember a man called Stevenson at Alliance? Our CU patron was called Stevenson. Invited you one of the evening, told us there's a man who can help us. That's 1972. I think you are very new. I don't know when you arrived, but at Alliance you arrived 72. Now, and you talked to us about the importance of the Bible, memorizing verses. You gave us a pack of some small pocket with papers. These days they are very organized, but ours were blank. You had to write what you wanted to memorize. And I still try to memorize. 47 years later, and I'm grateful. I know it's many years because the other day last year I was speaking at Alliance, and the deputy headmaster introducing me said, our speaker today left Alliance before the teachers were born. So I knew very well that the student picture is, I must be a brother of Noah. Now, but then you come to meeting like this, meet Mr. Tingard, and here is how we are. And that's my subject. I have 3 things in my presentation I want to establish. 3 things. Number 1 is to say, legacy is defined as what is remembered about you later. But I want you to understand legacy is done when you are still young. I've written a book called A Leader's Source of Influence, and it was because I was invited by Trinity Fellowship in a conference they called Generation Impact Conference, about maybe 15 years ago. And they wanted me, I was the main speaker throughout the week for 5 days, to talk to the young people about how they can impact their generation. And the messages were popular, so the idea of trying to turn them into a book came. But when I wrote the book, I called it A Leader's Source of Influence. One of the things that I was preparing came to me is that most people who make big impact do not die in their 70s. Yet for a long time, we were claiming the years of a man are 80 and a half. And I realized people don't need 80 to make an impact. And if you read my book, The Leader's Source of Influence, you will see many examples of people, including the original Martin Luther. I think died at the age of 66, didn't hit the 70. Or you talk about the younger Martin Luther called King, who died at the age of 40. But all of them, we are talking about them today. In fact, my view is that there would be no Obama if there was no Martin Luther King. Would you agree with me? Because he's the one who broke the ice. We are told that so many laws were changed in the US because of a man who never became a congressman. It was not necessary for him to enter politics, but America changed because of him, and he never got 70 years. So the first point I want you to understand is legacy is not something of the future. Legacy is now. But the second point I want to mention, which is important, is that in senior years, like we are discussing, the big subject is that we are retirees. I worked for Shell for around 30 years until they told me I was old. So I left on the basis of I'm old. Now, I realized how young I was. They were only mistaking me for old. Now, but that thought is a thought that makes people, let me just tell you, Kenya, retirement was 55. By 57, the people are so old, they wonder how they will die. Kibaki moved it to 60. Now people who are 57 feel very young. Can you see psychological impact of the word retirement? So I tell people, I am not retired. I'm retired. I have new tires. So you need to understand, once you have new tires, no transporter will ever buy new tires to park a lorry. Tires are very expensive. It's actually 30%, I'm a logistics person. It is actually 30% of the cost of running a transport business. So you'll never put new tires unless you have a trip. Are we together? So when you get retired, in other words, you have been having Navigator ministry tires, they are removed. You get new tires. It's because God has a journey for you. And as long as you keep thinking about being retired, you will be looking history. What I did. If you have new tires, you'll be asking, where should I be going? And I thought that's a message the seniors need to hear very, very clearly. You know, one of the things when we left Florence and I, when we left campus, we left campus 42 years ago, so we actually met more than 44 years ago. But she was not very good in mathematics those days. So she starts forgiven. But 1974 is actually about 45 years ago, isn't it? Yeah, so that's when we met, about 45 years ago. Now, but as soon as I left, we left in June. By the term that followed, which is September, I was invited to speak back in our Christian Union, the University of Nairobi. And that started, and I used to take the invitations so seriously, because I knew by the time I'm in my 40s, the young people will not invite me. Because you see, Florence and I, who are in the leadership, when we invited somebody who was 45, the complaint was, how can you invite such an old man? We thought that, I remember Mpaye was one of our speakers. We had to remind him many times because he is very old, and the guy was below 50. Now, so you can understand how I took invitations to various universities very seriously, because I knew by 45 I would stop that business. How wrong I was. Even this year alone, last Sunday I was speaking in Kamosi University. Before then I was in Moi University main campus. Before then I was in Maseno University. I'm talking about the last 6 weeks. And before then I was in Moi Medical. And after that, just 2 weeks ago, I was in Kuru campus. I go to more universities than I ever did in my 20s. Somehow the Lord just changed their mind, because I'm 67 this year, but they don't seem to know. Somehow, it just a new doors that opened every direction, from one campus. One moment I'm in Pond University, the next time in fact recently, just the last 6 weeks, I went to some Kababi University, which I never heard of, never know where it was, somewhere near Uganda. And I say, God, how? It is so true, you gave me new tires, so that I could go to places that Shell would never have allowed me to go, because I had a busy job, isn't it? But now, by getting retired, I am now available. Just this week, I'll spend the week. The reason I couldn't be here yesterday is because I'll spend the whole week asked for by a church, an Anglican church in Kiambu, to be there every 5:30 throughout the week. I've been speaking to what they are calling Easter messages throughout the week, which I finished yesterday. If I was still in Shell, I would have had to tell them, sorry, I can't make it from town by 5:30. But now that I'm on my own, I can accept. Are you getting the difference? That's what we are calling new tires. Things that I can go to a conference here, a conference there. I'm speaking in one country, One of the things that I thought is that, because I used to cover about 10 countries for Shell, from Madagascar, Mauritius, this region, to Djibouti, Sudan. And so I thought I was flying because Shell was paying. So I made up my mind, as soon as I leave Shell, I will now be settled to try to minister in Kenya. To my surprise, looking at the last number of years of new tires, I've been to countries I never went under Shell. I can remember myself in Djibouti, in Jamena, which is Chad, and I had never been to Chad in my life. I went to Central Africa, training the cabinet of that country, and again, I had never imagined I would actually be there. Last 2017, just the day we were going to have elections, I was doing a training for the Forest Commission of Ghana in Kumasi, which I had never been at a Shell. And at Shell, I used to go to the capital city. Somehow, the point I want you to get is that there's a possibility of getting new tires. And this conference is to make you aware of your new tires. So I want you to understand the important thing, that the term retirement is not a biblical word. I've tried to study it from Genesis to Revelation. The only people that were allowed to change jobs were priests, who at the age of 50 were not allowed to be the main priest. They now supported the ones. They didn't stop working, they changed jobs. Am I getting the point? So the idea is, you die on the job. I'm not communicating. You die on the job. But because the world has created what is called the worldview, it's actually an unbiblical worldview. Many people of our age are literally idle and bored, because they thought they actually achieved what they were supposed to achieve. My third point. So I wanted you to understand the term retirement is not a biblical word. You can change jobs because of your ratio cannot allow you to continue there. They have their policy. But you see, you do not live for an employer. God is the one who has appointed you. Are we together? And you need to understand that very important. The third word I want you to understand is that you will never be able to leave a legacy unless you have a vision and mission. And even if you are 70, these days people are living to 100, isn't it? it is not too late to clarify what your vision and mission are. In vision and mission, you're talking about, my wife tells our students to write their eulogy at the age of 8. I say, no. Eulogy is not a good word. Why don't they write their birthday speech when they are 80? Now, there may be people who are here who are 80, so maybe I need to say 90. But because not too many, because not too many of us are 80, can I use the word 8? Are you 88?
77.
Then I'm safe. Now, because you see somebody like it, like you're telling him years old. But let's agree 80. Now, so I would like to encourage you out of this conference to clarify in your mind what impact do you want to have made by the time you are 80. If you are overthinking, you have another 3 years. I'll get in the point. If you are Dr. Gikonyo, I will not tell them your age, but Gikonyo died, he was from 1 or from 6 at Alliance, so I can calculate his years. Now, you have a few more years, but all of us, if you talk about 80, it's ahead, not backwards. Am I right? Now, so I want you to ask yourself, what do you hear from within? What do you hear God telling you is the impact you should have made by the time you are 80? Once you have that impact, you ask yourself, how much of that have I actually achieved? Chances are, none of us has achieved it. And so you have a new lease of life in trying to ensure that you actually get that particular impact. I normally, the people I mentor, if somebody asks me that he wants me to mentor him, we always sit together. And I ask him to write for me, whether both of them are in their 20s. I ask them to write for me their 80th birthday speech. The idea is, now he has not even met who to marry, but if you have arrived by then, what do you hear her saying? Today is the birthday of my darling husband, and this is what his life has meant to me. Write one page of what you would want your spouse to read about the impact you have made. She's not supposed to talk about you. She's supposed to talk about herself and what your life has meant to her or him. That's what we call legacy. The things, the impact you have made on your spouse, because she will be reading and will be listening. The only trouble is, when the birthday is being organized, you have to still go to her and say, by the way, I wrote this when I was when I was 25. If you think you agree with it, please read it. But because she is saved, she can't read nonsense. So you need to write something you hear God telling you and something you intend to live by, so that she will not refuse to read. So it means you have the 3 years or the 30 years to work out your life to make the impact you wrote in that birthday speech. And it's very important to have it, because if you don't have it, like you hear her saying that he is, my husband has meant everything to me. He has made breakfast for me every morning. And you have never made. Now, but you have another 3 years or 4 years to do it. Am I communicating? So whatever you write will determine how you relate with that person. Are we together? Remember, the person will not know what you have written. It's top confidential. Are we together? You are writing between you and God. You're not writing for them to read. Are we together? Now, but you need to write what you mean to live. And I'm suggesting, if the reality is, it will be somewhere she can find it when it is needed, when you are on your 80th birthday. That's one of the most important things. If you don't get married, that will be thrown aside. But you need to write it now. If you feel God is calling you to marriage, you need to write it now, before you marry. You need to also, if you write it before you are married, it will also determine who you marry, isn't it? We can see people who cannot be happy with the impact you are claiming to want to make on them. So it's important to understand how you live with your wife will depend on your vision of the impact and legacy you will leave her. Of course, we are making an assumption that you outlive her. I'm getting the point. So that you have made it will be called a legacy because you have been gone earlier than him. But am I clear? That's really what you are talking about. You need to write it down. What is it? You may not have achieved it, but because the 80th birthday is not now, you still have time, isn't it? And it's important. I want you to write 7 speeches. That's only the first one. Because again in my book, The Leader Source of Influence, I say the call of God is a 7-fold call. In other words, you are not called in one area. You are called in 3 areas, and they are all part of the same call. I get my message from the book of Luke, chapter 2, verse 52, talking about the growth of Jesus. He said, and the baby grew, not just in one way, but he grew in stature, he grew in wisdom, he grew in favor with God, he grew in favor with man. In other words, the call of God is not just to have muscles, stature. No, although it is important to look after your health, it's not the only call. It will be important that all of them. So I divide those 3 into 3 main areas. There is a private area, then there is a social area, and there is a public area or personal area. There is a public area. So what is the private area that you need to be working on if you are going to make the impact that is in the speech? Number 1, the baby grew in wisdom. It means a commitment for life in intellectual development. That there is no time you reach when you are happy to be a fool. Now, it's very important to... And once you have retired, Skipata will talk about graduate illiterate. He was giving an example. I talked about a guy in Nakuru who wrote a prescription. He's a vet. Wrote a prescription. Then the guy went to a pharmacy in Nakuru, gave the prescription, and the pharmacist laughed. Said, that medicine, they stopped producing it a long time ago. Go and tell your vet there's something wrong. That guy, according to our former president, is illiterate because he stopped reading when he left campus. He's a graduate, illiterate. But Jesus, we are being told, was not like that. He grew in wisdom, continuous. And we need to challenge each other as seniors. You have literally no reason to not be checking up. The other day I was struggling with something digital. Then a young man said, don't worry. Brother Nuna, you are a digital immigrant. I said, what do you mean? You are already an adult before the digital world came, but you are trying to immigrate. What about you? I'm a digital citizen. No. So I just flow with it. Now, but even migrants are able to understand the country, isn't it? So you need to ask ourselves, what is it we can do? And one of the benefits of mentoring young people that I have enjoyed is how much they train me. Like after I retired, I didn't think I needed a website. Then I went to speak in Mombasa, and one of the former graduates of Chiromo campus, University of Nairobi, came, Mr. Nima, you should be having a website. I said, for what? He says, you still speak on campus, and we can't hear you. If you had a website, every time you talk to the campus, you would place the material in there. We also can listen. He said, no, you listened. I'm not, I think I'm too old for that, I said. The next time I was in Mombasa, the lady was on my case. Brother Nuna, there's nothing for you to do. I will develop the thing for you, yours, and I'll even train you how to upload. I said, what is to upload? To get the information in. And whatever you give, whatever talk you give in the campus, you simply upload it and you all can read. I told her I'll think about it. That time I was in Mombasa. I said, did you make up your mind? No, I realized there's no alternative. Said, I'm going to give you a list of the things to reply, and then I'll make the website for you. And that's what the person did. So, for example, I wanted to call my website by my consultancy name, Taluma Consultants. The lady says, no, John Nana is the name we know. When you're in campus, call your website John Nana. I said, I'm not a personal cult. I don't want something like that. When she went to search for Taruma, she said some Japanese company already used it. So didn't I tell you, John Nana is original. So that's why my website is actually John Ganga. But she was able to teach me how to upload. She flew from Mombasa to Nairobi to sit me in a job. She told me to come with a computer, and she trained me how to upload. And for the last 7-8 years, every Monday, I upload the way I upload something onto the machine. Initially, she was able to gang her friends to subscribe. So I had 20, 30 people subscribing. And I was happy just to upload. After all, it doesn't cost me much. When you're using Zuku, there is nothing additional. You already have paid the bill. So I agreed to do it. But do you know today, my website is read by people, over 3,500 people all over the world. And I have no idea who they are. Because you see, it's you just subscribe. I just see people subscribing. I get notified, somebody has subscribed. And I keep saying, what a fool I was to imagine I'm too old to be able to use. I'm getting my how foolish we can be. Don't join me. Now it's very important to start understanding that the pedigree in wisdom means opening up yourself to young people. You know, some people think that older people mentor young people. Sometimes young people mentor old people. But most of us are so proud we are not mentable. Is that English? and so it means that in our own way, we are not leaving a legacy in the speeches because we are not growing in wisdom. In 1969, I was still active in our CU, and I made a decision. I'll be reading a book, not for exam purposes, just for my mental development. For all the while. And up to date, I can tell you the book I'm reading currently. I read a book from 1969, so about 50 years. I've been always reading a book, not to pass an exam. Just to do it. At that time, I didn't know that I would start writing. But I realized it was God's way of giving me materials, so when I started writing, it was easy to get the information. I was just reading for myself. And I want to tell you, if you want to leave a legacy, you must be the lawyers will not allow you to be a learned friend. You must be a constant student. You must agree to learn all the days of your life. Maybe that's what the Lord uses in getting me to speak to campuses. I'm aware now the people I'm speaking to in campus. I was speaking in Pond University, and then when the CU takes you, the Christian takes you to a place for to eat, the secretary asked me, Mr. Nyinga, when did you do your Form 4? I said, why? 71. He said, you're not serious. My mother was not born. And because that's about 4 or 5 years ago, I didn't take it seriously. I said, you are joking. Then your mother must have given birth to you as a teenager. No. My father finished Form 4, went to teacher training, became a trained P1 teacher. That's when she got married. At what age? 22. How old are you? 20. I added 42. I had to agree it is true. Her mother was not born. Now you need to understand clearly what we are talking about is that if you start thinking you are old, you are as old as you think. And you start losing opportunity to fulfill the birthday speech at 80th birthday because you retired rather than got retired. So I think it's a so the private area is that, and trouble with that wisdom area, nobody can manage you. Your spouse cannot manage you. It's a personal decision. So it's not something is public or social. It's a private area. The other thing that is in private area is that the baby grew in favor with God. Again, there is nobody who can supervise you. Other thing, God can teach you how to memorize, but he may not, 40 years later, he doesn't know how to memorize. The scripture you may write the daily power, but they are not aware that you still get that power. Now, it is you, it's a personal matter. Are we together? And you will not make a legacy if you do not make a personal decision to meet with God on a daily basis. And being a navigator, you understand about systematic quiet time, isn't it? And you understand, but the trouble is, when you have done it for 40 years, you feel like you know the Bible backward, forwards. Now, the moment you get that spirit of arrival is your end. When you feel like I'm mature. The way to know you are not mature is to know you is to think you are mature. That's the evidence. You are not mature. People who are mature don't know they are mature. They are always seeking to be like God. And because they are not yet there, they are still struggling to meet with God, isn't it? The moment you have the spirit of arrival, you have evidence you are not mature. That's the way. I find it very interesting because biological babies are very different from our babies. Animals, for example, a cow, and I grew up in Nyandarua, so I know about farming. A cow will drop the calf down. Within no time, the calf rises, starts moving, and starts going for the breast. Those of you who are from your area, am I right? Now, a human baby is totally different. If the baby is born, if nobody helps it, it dies there. But a cow will start moving, isn't it? And you need to understand we are very different. Now, back to the animal, away from the animal to the human being. You are totally dependent. The way you know you are mature is that you become less and less dependent. Until by our age, even if our mothers are alive, we are looking after them, not them after us. So somehow the ball changes, isn't it? So that's the way you know, biologically, in biological terms, the more independent you are, the more mature. Spiritually, is the other way around. A newly born Christian is so excited about walking with the Lord. If he saw you backsliding, he easily change your dental formula. How can you backslide? Because he cannot imagine anybody backsliding after what the Lord has done. By the time you are our age, you have filled enough time to know that when you see somebody backsliding, you say, there go I, if it were not for the grace of the Lord. So somehow, you understand people, isn't it? That is not, when you don't have that idea of how totally dependent you are on God, the truth of the matter is, you are a baby Christian. Maturity is that dependence. And you see, in Christianity, the more dependent you are on God, the closer you are, the more spiritually mature you are. The more independent of God, the more you are backsliding. Are we together? And that's why you need to be checking with yourself. Do you feel desperately in need of the Lord? If the answer is not anymore, then please know you have not backslidden, but you have started. It's very important to ask yourself, how's that going? So, the spiritual is a private matter. Your wife cannot help you. It's you to say, how are you walking with the Lord? Because you will not be able to make that impact you wrote in the speech without the help of God. The third area is that it's still private. So we talked about intellectual development, spiritual development, then stature, physical development. And again, that's not anybody can help you on. It is you who can look after your body. Because sometimes as we grow older, you have the message, but your body can't allow you to give it. Are you getting it? Have you reached that level? The other day I was asking a doctor, how come people of my age are falling all the time? You meet that one, a fracture. Another one, a fracture. What is happening? And he told me, by the time you reach our age, you lose a sense of balance. So you are walking, a small tip, you start hovering, you actually will go all the way down. Exactly like a baby. Because a baby and an old man have lost balance. Now, so I said, what's the solution? You must keep on doing exercise so to remain in balance. Now, you start realizing that if you truly want to serve the Lord to your 80s, it will be important that you look after your health. Are we together? And you know, other people may need a doctor's instruction to do exercise, but it is in the Bible. The Bible says physical exercise is profitable. Okay, it says spiritual one is even more profitable, but it starts by telling you physical exercise is profitable. And sometimes we have created an impression like it's success. The other day, I preach in many places, so I was in a swimming pool somewhere, and then a lady came to ensure it is me. You know, they can't recognize me when I'm in a suit. Says, Brother Nanga, is that you? I said, yes, it's me. You swim. Now I can see the message. I'm backsliding. They can't imagine an emoji swimming. Are you getting the point? Now somehow, some people have forgotten that we do not do exercise willingly. It's required by the Bible. Am I communicating? All that is to help you to make the legacy. Are you getting the point? in order for that to happen. All those three are not things anybody can help you. But then we come to what I'm calling the social or personal area. And you need to invest time in your family. It means you must find a way of being available to your family. The good thing is, when they are like us, you need to understand that at that point, your real family is your wife. The children are still part of your family, but an extension. I keep reminding people that children are not part of your marriage. They are only visitors. Okay, agree, long-term visitors, but they are still visitors. If you don't recognize that, you become a mess on your married children. Am I right? They stay 2 weeks without coming. Why have you abandoned me? Now, you need to understand, and maybe I'm too late for some, you should give them time when they are still in your house. So when they go, they come when they choose. Am I communicating? Don't cry all the time. You have left me. Now, you are not going to leave a good legacy. The legacy will be of a complainer. You did a lot of good things earlier. You have spoiled it all in your old age. So it's important to understand this idea about investing in your family at different levels. That when they are young, there is a certain availability required. When they are old, there is no availability required. Many grandfathers want to teach their daughters or sons how to look after the grandchildren. You should have done that before they left your house. It's a very important thing to understand. If you want to leave a good legacy, you must understand the Bible means what it says. Ephesians says, children, obey your parents. But the Ten Commandments do not use the word obey. The Ten Commandments says, honor your father and that is applied to everybody. If you are 70 and your father is 90, you must still honor him. But when they are young, they are supposed not to just honor, but to obey. When we become an adult, when our children become adults, they are not required by the scriptures to obey us. They are not required. The Bible doesn't require them to obey. How do I know? Just go to the story of the Red Sea. God made the children of Israel go through the Red Sea. And he explains why. Because he wanted to teach them how to trust in him. He did such a miracle, and I used to cover Sudan. I can remember myself in Port Sudan looking at this and say, for sure this is not a river. There's no way you can swim across. And that's why he wanted them there. So they know only a miracle can get them across. Why? Because he wanted to build their faith. But after doing that, when they were in the desert, they started rebelling. God was so unhappy with them, he says every adult will not go to Canaan, except Joshua and Caleb. Do you know something? Anybody who was 19 years, 11 months, 29 days, and 23 hours at the time of crossing the Red Sea was allowed to go to Canaan. Because they were children. The Jewish measure of age was 20. You became an adult. So at 19, you had to obey your parent. So even if you actually rebelled, it was you are protected. It's your father who made you rebel. I give you a point. But once you are 20 years and 1 hour, the Bible does not require you to obey your parents. It means you considered and decided to do what they were doing. Therefore, you die in the desert. To leave a good legacy, you must change the style of dealing with the family as soon as they become adults. Let me tell you the difference. With young children, you give instructions. With adult ones, you give advice. Instructions must be obeyed. Advice must be considered. Are you getting the difference? Yeah. So, the Bible, the Proverbs tells us, people who don't listen to advice are not wise, isn't it? But it's still advice. You know, I know that because I used to work for Shell, and by the time I retired, I was in top management. If I gave instructions, you fail to obey them at your own risk. Because I had the power. Then I registered a consultancy firm. Another time, one of their companies gave me some work in Tanzania, paid for my flight. I was staying in a hotel they were paying. They gave me a vehicle to travel with. I prepared my report. I emailed it. They paid me. I was still waiting for them to call me to talk to the board. When I rang and said, are you not calling me? I said, no, we got your report, you can read. And since I was paid, I have no idea whether my report was trashed or not. But it helped me to learn. I was not giving instructions. I was giving advice. And when you give advice, the owners decide whether to take it or not. Parents must learn. Your children should not be people that obey you. They should be people who consider your opinion. Why is that so? 3 things. Number 1, you start understanding that the advice you give is about the future, isn't it? But you have not lived in that future. You have a lot of experience about the past, but they don't require it because the future may not be like the past. So whenever you give advice, remember, you are basing it on history, which is not necessarily going to be repeated in future. Once you realize that, you keep adding. Hey, by the way, consider it. I'm not suggesting you follow it because you know very well your limitations. Number 2, so to understand why, if you want to leave a legacy with them, and by the way, I'm not talking about your children, the biological ones, the people you are mentoring. Every time I'm mentoring somebody, I enter into a contract with them, and I tell them, I will never give you instructions, I'll give you advice. No. Doesn't mean I want to obey. No. I don't want you to obey me. The first one is, I don't know the future. Number 2 is, they have other people they can get information from. Am I right? So, the father will talk, but he also can ask others, isn't it? So surely, why do you think you are the only one right? That's pride. And the Bible tells us pride comes before a fall. So you do not become like a burden on your other children, because you know they can also check elsewhere, isn't it? After all, if they are married, you are one father, they send another father on the other side. So you start understanding they have multiple places they can get information from. But the third reason, which I normally give them, is that as I give you advice, if it backfires, I may be in heaven by then. So you will suffer alone. I am not going to be involved. Now, if I know that the backfiring of my advice will not affect me, shouldn't I be careful? I should allow the person who will suffer to make his own, but I must give him advice. Are we together? And we are saying, you need, if you want the legacy I'm talking about, it will be important to learn how to deal with mentees or children. And that will be important. But related with it is friends. Remember I told you it's a 7-fold call. You have covered 4 so far. So you need the family, you also need friends. Who are friends? Friends are people to whom you are open enough for them to understand the reasoning behind what you do. Anybody who has not, where that is not opened, is called an acquaintance. And many people we call friends are actually acquaintance. And you need them. You need friends. If you are going to make an impact, you need friends. Now, may I quickly say, you need at least a minimum of 3 friends. If you are going to make, according to me, you don't have to agree with me, I'm giving you advice, not instructions. You need a minimum of 3 friends. At least that's what I try to do. Number 1 friend, you need somebody less gifted than you. In fact, you can tell them, when you have a meeting with such a person, you feel drained. Why do you feel drained? Because they are draining out of you. They are draining out of you. My friend, you need somebody like that. If you intend to leave a legacy, look for people whom you meet and you get nothing. They don't give you, they don't add any value to you. They just draw. Why is that important? 3 reasons again. Number 1, the difference between the Red Sea, and the Navigators told me the story, the difference between the Dead Sea and the Sea of Galilee is simply because both of them are on the same river. One receives and doesn't give, the one that receives and gives. So the Sea of Galilee has fish. The Dead Sea is actually dead. And some Christians are Dead Sea Christians. They come to a conference for this, they keep imbibing, and they start suffering from spiritual constipation. You know, when you don't give out, and I know those of you at my age understand over Christmas, we only ate chapati once in the 60s. We only ate chapatis during Christmas. So you ate until you suffered from constipation. Now, some people suffer from spiritual constipation. That's how you become a dead sick person who has nobody they give. They only receive. And at our age, surely the Lord has shown us certain things. At least we have made enough mistakes which you can warn others not to repeat. I tell young people, please be original with your mistakes. Don't repeat mine. So I'm willing to share mine so that you become original. Now, so it's important to understand that if you are going to make a difference in other people's lives, you must be willing. You know, there is some theology, some positive motivational speakers are giving that's totally un-Christian. They tell young people, do not keep the company of people that are not going places. Have you heard it? Now, if you do that, how will you bring people to the Lord? How will you help anybody? How will you have any impact? You are so self-centered. You will just be a Dead Sea Christian. And I'm not suggesting that it's not good advice for somebody to check who they are associating with. But the important thing is to know why you're associating. Florence will tell you, in 1874 when we came to campus, we were told, with the non-Christians, you evangelize. With the Christians, you socialize. I've never forgotten it, Florence. Because that's what the message we got was, that we must associate with non-Christians and Christians. But the reason behind it is different. If you want to relax with someone, you select Christians. You don't go relaxing with non-Christians. You'll soon be drinking. Am I right? So it's important. But you must relate with both. So we are saying that if you really are going to make a difference, it's important to ask yourself all your life, who am I mentoring? Who am I investing my life in? If you did it because you are working for the Navigators, and you stopped because you retired, please go for new tires. It is the thing that will make you stop mentoring people is dying. Are we together? Yeah. So it's important to understand. And that is something you have to, and you know, I discover, once people know you are available, they are continuous. Like yesterday I had a rough time because we went with my wife to speak in the Easter Friday service. And then I remember there was a young man who literally wanted me by the end of the day. And I felt like telling him no. Then I realized, no, I'll go, rest for 2-3 hours. So I told him, come at around 4:30 or 5 o'clock. We met at 5 o'clock. And you sit there, you listen to him, you listen to the things he's going through. You have gone through it, you're able to share. He goes thinking you have said many things, but it didn't cost you anything. Am I communicating? And I've discovered they are continuous. 1 week, I meet sometimes 10 people in 1 week. And I don't know them. I just get a call. Last week I got a call from someone who says, you may not remember me, but you spoke to us. We were a group of young people on Krimabogo. You know, there's a place, see you like going. And he started saying, do you remember so and so and so? I can't. Of course, I still couldn't remember him. Then he said he has gone through a very difficult time. When they were just about to be married, and the girl just dropped him like a hot potato. And he just remembered our discussion 10 years ago. He says, would you be willing to meet me? You know, it's a privilege, isn't it? Now, you need to understand, if you intend to make impact, you must go out of your comfort zone. And you must never retire. Did you hear me? So you need to understand that the person who will carry your legacy, you may not even have met them now, even if you are 70. So it may be somebody in the remaining years who will make a total difference using your life. So you need to understand, you must of necessity not be available, because you can't force yourself. Be available to people. And by the way, some of the people who need your mentoring are older than you. They are struggling with their wives, and they are going through difficult times, and they are looking for somebody willing to listen. Like this young man is from a campus out of Nairobi. He drove all the way. I asked him, why did you come over? He said, no. I looked around campus. I didn't see anybody who can keep this confidential. So I decided to call you, because I know you will listen to me, you will help me, and you will not start telling the stories. So, and you know, all of us can do that, isn't it? So it's important to understand our closing up, no longer available to young people, is closing your legacy. I'm not suggesting that you should have 10 like me, but why don't you have one per week? Those you can afford, because there is no number written in the Bible, thou shalt meet 10. So, but meet someone. Are we together? You need to ask yourself. So I give you, I tell you, I'll give you 3 reasons why it is important to have a friend who is drawing from you. So number 1, I have told you in the end that when somebody draws out of you, when the change comes, there's nothing more exciting. You know, you are going somewhere and say, Brother Nyanga, can you remember me? There was a time we were in Cape Town, and we are just walking, and somebody said, Brother Nyanga, can you remember me? I can't. Oh, I was in KU. And then they remind me what I said, how it has helped them. My friend, you sleep like you have been given a drug that night. When you get feedback about the impact, something you shared very simply is making another life. Many of you are having to take sleeping tablets. Don't. Mentor. And when you see the results of investing your life in places, it will surprise you. And that's one of the things I keep everywhere I go. I remember when I was covering 10 countries. I remember myself in Sudan. I met a young man. See, you can't remember me, but I was the Form 1 in 1988 when he came to speak to us, and I gave my life to the Lord. Now he is the chief accountant of an NGO in Khartoum, and can remind me what I spoke. Exactly the way I'm doing with Overthinked. Now I can tell you for sure, million people are living a lethargic life because of closing themselves and not being available. There's no way you live a legacy that way. So, and the other thing that has come of late is, I remember going to speak in Machakos, and the person introducing me says, he's of course, he's not a young person, his children have finished university. Says, you know, you think I'm old? This speaker now used to speak to us when we were in campus. What is the message he is giving? By now I should have stopped. Now if you start listening to them, you'll stop, isn't it? So it's important to start. So the first thing is why you are investing your life is because there are returns, not just in heaven, here on earth. You will not wait, and they will not pay you in money. It's nothing to do with money, but it will make your old age a viable, interesting, fantastic life. Number 2, when you mentor somebody younger, they force you back to the books. They'll ask you a question, like the one I was asked, the last 2 people have mentioned. The kind of complicated thing they ask, I have to go back to prayer. I have to consult God. They have forced me out of my comfort zone. You know, like the one I met yesterday, the things he was talking about, I thought, I have never heard of that at all. Never heard. And we've agreed to pray together. So people who mentor are forced to operate at a very high standard. You know, for example, you're mentoring a family, and you're telling them how not to quarrel. Then you get home and you start quarreling Rebecca. Now, you remember just what you told a person the previous morning, and if you start smiling to Rebecca, she wonders whether you are going mad. It's because you have actually remembered that you are trying to show people how to be at peace in their marriages, yet you are not at peace in your own marriage. Do you want your marriage to be better? Start mentoring young couples. Am I communicating? It forces you, upende, usipende, to operate at a higher level. Now, if you are West African, I told my West African friend that Swahili is now a language in African Union. So the whole Africa should know it. But upendo usipende means whether you like it or not. So you can see the reason why you need to mentor people is because, first of all, it will give you benefit. Number 2, it forces you to operate at a higher level, which is very important. Thirdly, when you mentor people, it's also company. You know, I told you of this young girl, this young lady from Chiromo campus, who used to come to our house when she was one of the CU leaders, and after meeting the committee, she would come home. So they kind of became like a daughter. So she's the one in Mombasa committed to Nganga becoming digital, and is willing to use her time until I become digital. Are you getting the point? Yeah. You know, the other day they say, but you should be on YouTube. I said, you what? So there's nothing to do. Just give us, record what you are talking. Give us, we will tell you. So now you can go to YouTube and you find John N. Nganga YouTube account with more than 100 audios or videos that are young people. So they are putting me in a place. So are you getting the point that when you mentor people, they become your friends? So I am suggesting if you truly want to make an impact, it will be important to invest in that. But I said 3 friends. The second friend, and I have to be finishing so that we can, the time is up. May I mention the other 2? Yeah. No, unfortunately, I didn't look at my watch. I have to apologize. I didn't look at my watch. I didn't realize time is gone. But let me quickly mention the other 2. You need a friend who is better than you. A lot of us are so proud, whenever we hear somebody better, we run away. Because we like to be where people think we are great. So, my friend, it will limit your impact. You know, you have a good family. Then you go to a family that is far much better than you. Do you know your family can only improve? But when you're always with families that are requiring your help, you think you are doing very well. Am I communicating? So you need to find a couple or a person who intimidates you because of how the Lord is using them. It may be not just spiritual issues. It may be an engineer. Somebody who is running an engineering consultancy firm and is doing better than you. Go them, befriend them. People better than you. In other words, you are now a mentee. They are your mentors. Because you see, they are the only ones who will be able to pull you up from your level to see their levels you have never imagined. So that by the time the Bible speech is being written, you have actually made the ring. Unfortunately, I can't go on with that. But I think you understand the reasons, which I'm not mentioning just now, why it is important to have somebody better than you until you die. There is no time you'll be mature enough to act on. And remember, somebody to be your mentor does not have to be older than you. You only know on this area, I can't measure up. So I'd like to be so and so, because there, I feel I gain. You need to have them. That type of a friend is what I call colleague friend. And they are very important. Colleague friend is somebody like you. You quarrel with your wife, he has also quarreled. So when you quarrel, you don't find it difficult to go to him and say, by the way, you can't imagine, last night we quarreled with Rebecca, surely, now how can you help? He told even me I quarreled last week. Let's discuss how to do it. And you know, even if you have a mentor and the mentee, you dare not review everything. You could crash the legend. The mentor looks so holy, sometimes you don't tell him nonsense. But there is this guy who can accept your nonsense. It's very important to understand. You know, if you want to know somebody, whether he is a colleague friend, when the children say, hey, Baba Wamboy is coming, if you start checking your shirt, that's a mentor. A colleague, you are in your shirts are out and you are in your slippers, you run out to embrace him. Because he knows you the way you are. I wish I had more time to deal with this. Because when you lack people who can be free with you, others will fear telling you what's wrong with you. But there are people who just tell you, Mama, you are hopeless. Why can you behave like that? Now, you need a few of those people. And they are not likely to be your mentors or mentees. They are colleagues and friends. Are we together? Now, quickly, I told you there are 7 areas of impact. The first one was your spouse. The second one is your children. Assuming you have 3 like me, one of them will be selected to read the speech, which you wrote before they were born. To say, for me, I feel called to leave a legacy like this. The impact I'll make on my children is this. Write it down. That today is the birthday of our father. I want to tell you the impact he has made on our lives as 3 children. What do you hear them saying? Write it down. The truth is, you know you have not made that impact yet. But you ask the Lord for time to actually make it real. So do not lower it because you are not yet there. You are not writing what you have achieved. You are writing what you pray you achieve. Okay, the difference? So it's important that you write it down. What is it? What do you hear? What impact do you want to make on your children? You know to dictate how you relate with them. Once you have written it down. Speech number 3 is a speech that is to be read by a relative, a cousin. You can't say uncle because they will all be dead, even we will soon be dying. So uncles are all gone. So I'm talking about cousins. Are you making an impact beyond your immediate family? Are you thinking about your brother's family, your cousin's family, people in your immediate vicinity? It's important to understand that there are people, if you pick a call and say, call your uncle's son, he's likely to pick your call. And God may be wanting you to make an impact. You know, I talk like that to my mentees. Then I realize the truth is, I can't hear that speech for myself. Because Nyandarua is a settlement area. So we left where my relatives, my grandfather's children were. Until I realized I don't have good excuse. So I started writing letters. And I organized all the grandchildren of my mother's father. I invited them to Jarine. And they came. Some of them we have never seen each other. And had the opportunity to share God's word with them. And they were excited. Oh, you're the one of Mama's wife. Oh, we were very excited. One of them is a Mukamba. And they had real difficulty understanding our Kikuyu. So we had to keep translating. But we were all excited to be the children calling the same one person grandfather. For them, it's just an excitement. For me, it's strategic. I want to share my life with them. But they came because I'm a grandchild of their grandfather. I'm getting the point. Once I did that, I left. That was my mother's side, and I went to my father's side. And they are all over. I did the same again in my place. And we shared. So that now, one of them asked about the impact I made. They can remember what I'm doing. I'm not communicating. Once you write it, it will force you to prepare strategies, isn't it? But the first thing is to write it in the speech. Then ask yourself, what can I do now in the remaining years that will make a relative say my impact was not just my wife and I and the children. We went beyond to affect other families. Those are how many speeches now? 3. So you had your spouse, you have your children, you have your cousins or immediate or clansmen. Number 4, you now need a representative of the church. What spiritual impact did you make? Maybe not the church, but somebody whom you affected spiritually. But normally the pastors will know. But whoever it is has to be around your age. You can say, wow, we joined the Navigators with so-and-so in 1972 when Overseeing God came to Alliance. Now, I can tell you how his life has affected the Church of Christ in the last 50-something years. What difference are you hoping to make in terms of evangelism and discipleship? So they are no longer, you started with people that are biologically related with you. We are not talking about out there. What impact are you making? And remember, even if you have not made it, the years remaining, you still can make it, isn't it? So you need to hear that speech, write it, a spiritual impact. Speech number 6. It is 5. Yes, speech number 5 is from somebody I call a local representative, a community representative. Many of us are so interested in spiritual impact. We do not want to leave a legacy community-wise. Of course, if you are politically oriented, you have an easier time. But even others, you have a chance. Your children go to school, so you can join PTA and make a new community impact. You belong to a gated community, isn't it? And many Christians are the ones refusing to pay. Now, that is the legacy. That's the legacy that will remain. When they ask to speak in your birthday speech, they will say, we know him. He never paid his security money. Now, so we are saying, you need to make up your mind. What community impact? We are not discussing spiritual, talking about being a good neighbor. I'm not communicating. What do you hear them saying? And important. Number 6. You are talking about national impact. When it comes to number 6, not everybody will write. But maybe You want to be, somebody can come who talks about the impact you have made in the nation. And you need to talk about it, isn't it? Now, if that's not your area, don't write that one. But if you feel called to make an impact beyond your immediate community, please write it down. That's part of the legacy. And speech number 7, international impact. What do you feel will be the impact? Somebody will come from the US or will come from Ghana in your birthday speech, because you know them, you invite them. And one of them you say, hey, see, we have been with you, read this speech. Now he is saved, so you will not agree to read nonsense. So it must be the impact you have made internationally. Are we together? And the last thing I have left out is professional impact. Professional impact. And it's important to ask yourself, you are an engineer. What difference have you made in the engineering field? And you know the fact that you are retired doesn't mean you cannot still impact. What is your professional impact? The skills God gave you, what difference have they made? That's really what we are talking about when we talk about legacy. The things that will happen, the things that will happen beyond your life. The impact you make will continue beyond your death. So my prayer is that that you will take time and think through, what is it I want to be by the time I'm called home? What do I hear God calling me to be in those 7, 8 areas? And then ask, who am I now? What strategies do I want to use so that I'll truly make that kind of impact? You know, if you asked, what legacy did Nkrumah leave? You will quickly say, the unity of Africa. Would I be right? Yeah. And it's important to understand that if you ask, what impact did Tomboya leave? You will talk about African socialism, which he wrote in 1965, and what it meant for us as a country. If you ask what legacy did Kibaki leave, you will be told about Thika Road. Am I right? Now, when we talk about John Nganga, what legacy will be talked about that goes beyond my life? And it does not have to be a road, because you have to be a president to get a road. It is people beyond your life who are actually continuing to be impacted because you lived on earth. And I thought that helps to summarize the issues that we need to deal with. The Lord bless you.